Hey there, Wonderhussy here, out in the middle of the desert again. This time, I'm about to go explore a ghost town. But it's actually not really a ghost town. I guess you'd call it a semi-ghost town, because people still live here. Okay, I'm just across the bridge that goes over this dry, and I do mean dry, riverbed from the town of Daggett, California. I like to think that it was named because some poor miner broke down in the middle of this baking, broiling, blasting, unforgiving desert, and he went, Daggett! Guess I'll have to stay here. But that's not actually how the town got its name. It actually has an interesting story how it got its name, and I'll go into all that once I cross the bridge here into Daggett proper. Now I should note, we're only about 15 miles southeast of Barstow, so you might call Daggett a suburb of Barstow. But I feel like, as far as suburbs go, this one might be a bit more interesting than most. Okay, I went ahead and parked in the shade at this abandoned gas station, and that's pretty much a great indicator of the kind of town Daggett is. I'm gonna guess this gas station hasn't been operational in many years. Probably around the time whoever wore these high heels wore these high heels. Uh-oh, train's coming. That's right, Daggett sits right on the railroad tracks, and that's kind of how this city got its start. That's right, I guess Daggett was originally founded back in 1882 as a railroad town. It was when the railroad first came through this area, and for a while there they even considered making Daggett like the main switchyard for the whole railroad in the area. But I guess at the time there was a silver boom going on in Calico. If you've ever been to Calico Ghost Town, it's not really that far from here. It's just right on the other side of the railroad tracks. Well, there was a huge silver strike in Calico. That drove land prices up, so the railroad didn't want to have to spend all the money to build a rail yard here in Daggett, being so close to the silver strike, so they went down to Barstow and they opened it there. And well, if they had built that rail yard here, Daggett might be a lot bigger town today. As it is, most businesses here in Daggett look pretty busted down. I mean, that abandoned gas station I parked at way over there isn't the only abandoned gas station in town. I'm standing here in front of Mugwumps. That's right, Mugwumps. Gotta love the name. I guess Mugwumps was a pretty big service station right here at the side of old Route 66. That's right. Not only does the railroad go right through Daggett, but so did, or does I guess, old Route 66. How about that? I wish more highways would print the name of the highway right on them. As far as I know, Route 66 is the only one that does that. And I guess that's because Route 66 is really the only sexy, glamorous highway. I mean, if you've ever driven like the 405 in California or I-10, I mean, it's not likely that they're gonna put the name of the friggin' road on that. Anyway, it's unexpectedly busy here in Daggett today. This is a Friday afternoon. I guess people are coming home from work. I mean, you can see there's smokestacks in the distance. There's some kind of industry here, but it's nothing like what it once was. So back in 1882, like I was saying, the railroad thought about making this the main switchyard, but they decided to put it in Barstow instead. But Daggett did just fine anyway, because aside from the silver strike up in Calico, which now that the train is gone, you might be able to see up on the side of the mountain there, it says Calico because that's Calico Ghost Town. See that up in the upper left-hand side? That's right, that's where there was this huge silver strike that drove the land prices up and made the railroad not want to build their switchyard here. Well, aside from silver, there's plenty of other minerals in these there hills. These here hills, including borax, okay? There was a huge borax mine in Death Valley. Remember the 20 mule team? Like those giant draft horses that had those huge wagons, and they would drag the borax, 20 mules per wagon because it was so heavy, and these wagons were huge. They would drag that borax here. This was the terminus of the 20 mule team route for, well, only for a couple years, because I guess one of the swampers, and I don't actually know what a swamper does on a mule team, but one of the swampers apparently was lynched, I think here in Daggett. And so, well, that kind of put the kibosh on the 20 mule team bringing borax here. But another deposit of borax was discovered right up in these hills, right next to Calico. So they didn't need to drag all that borax from Death Valley. They had their own borax right here. And in fact, it was such a big borax mine that I think they needed like 200 workers, and well, they all moved here to Daggett. And that's when the town really started booming. Okay, nowadays I think there's only about 200 people living in Daggett proper. But when it was booming in the 1890s, Daggett was quite the place to be. I mean, I think there was like 3 restaurants, 3 saloons, a bunch of hotels, probably some brothels, and even a Chinese restaurant. But anyway, that was way back in the 1890s. There ain't no Chinese restaurant here nowadays. In fact, there's really not much of anything here other than these really cool old, I guess, abandoned houses. Now, I don't know if this house is abandoned or if it looks like it might be being preserved historically. And I guess they call this the Russian house, or at least that's what it was marked on Google Maps, the Russian house, because it has that funky Russian roof line. Okay, I don't know if some Russian borax miner built this or some borax miner who just liked Russian architecture built it or what, but it's a pretty cool roof, if I do say so myself. It doesn't look like the easiest roof to do. Like, if you've ever done roofing, you know it's not easy to do them curves on the side. So obviously it wasn't done out of just necessity. Whoever built this was showing off. You know what I mean? Whenever you do some kind of weird architectural feature that's not easy, that's just basically a flex. Like, so whoever built this house was flexing, like, oh, I've got money. So it's probably like a rich banker or somebody. Maybe this was like the judge in town or something. Well, actually that makes sense, because isn't that a jail in the yard there under that tamarisk tree? Unfortunately, it's all fenced off here, so I can't go in, but I'll zoom. That looks like one of those old jails. They used to keep people in these metal boxes like that in these small western towns. You know, like if you've ever been to the Kelso Depot in the town of Kelso in the Mojave Preserve, they have that really well-preserved old historic railroad depot. And there's one of these old, gosh, I feel like there's a name for those kind of jails, but it's essentially just a metal box that they would put the bad hombres in until, I guess, the big city sheriff or whatever could come get them and drag them off to the real jail. Man, there's all kind of cool old vehicles in this yard too. Like, look at that old truck. And then there's a real old wagon. I mean, that almost looks like one of the wagons they would have hauled borax in. And then look at this. It's an old fire truck. This is cool. You can see on the front there, there's the emblem. It says Seagrave. Oh wow, it's a Seagrave. Anyone ever drive a Seagrave fire truck? That's pretty cool. And it looks like there's a bunch of other rusty old farm equipment sitting in the backyard of this fascinating old Russian house. Oh, isn't that an even older fire truck? Right there. I mean, the reason I'd guess it's a fire truck is it looks like there's this weird horn at the top there. Oh gosh, sorry, it's hard to point to that right there. Isn't that an old horn? What do I know? I'm just walking around on this beautiful sunny day, enjoying poking around this mysterious semi-ghost town. See why I called it a semi-ghost town? It's not a total ghost town. There's still people living here, just not very many of them. And certainly nowhere near as many as used to live here back in the 1890s. Golly, another train already? I didn't realize so many trains came through this way. But unfortunately, the rail traffic is pretty much the only traffic coming through town anymore. I mean, I guess this is kind of like the classic story of a small American town along Route 66 that dried up when they built the interstate. Okay, Interstate 40 is just like a block that way. I mean, it came real close to Route 66 here, but you know, once they built that, everybody just blew along that. And that's probably why all these gas stations closed down. This and mugwumps, nobody stopped here anymore. I mean, that pretty much says it all. Freight train blowing through some kind of old abandoned sign leading to a business that's long defunct. That kind of looks like a sign that would be pointing to a motel. So there was probably a bunch of really cool little roadside motels here when Route 66 was a thing, but well, now all of that looks to be gone too. I mean, there is this amazing looking El Rancho mobile park just off the side of Route 66. Can you imagine if you lived at the El Rancho mobile park? You live right on Route 66. That's kind of cool. I don't want to be nosy and like go snoop around this mobile park because people live there, you know, blue collar folks that are just trying to get by. But they do kind of have this interesting display out front. I mean, it's one of those signposts. Well, first of all, look, on the sign for the mobile park, they do have the Route 66 logo. And it says here, Kansas City, Kansas is only 1,262 miles that away. We'll be there by morning. But these signposts aren't just towns along Route 66. I mean, there's Cody, Wyoming, Israel, Austin city limits, y'all. It's like a pile of other cities that have fallen down. I mean, oh man, look, Honolulu. Somebody needs to come in and shore this thing up, man. Agua Dulce, South Africa? Okay, this thing is pointing south and it says Seattle, Washington. I don't know. Maybe it's meant to be a piece of subversive art. Okay, I'll bet you anything. Speaking of subversive art, there's probably some pretty interesting stuff in this town. So why don't we get in the car and drive around the back streets of Daggett and see what we can find. Okay, apologies in advance. I know my windshield isn't very clean. There's a bunch of bug guts on it, but we're gonna cruise around and look at Daggett, and you're just gonna have to deal with it if you want to see what's going on here. And I guess I lost track of my story. I was meaning to say how the town of Daggett got its name. Remember, I was saying it wasn't because some miner broke down here and went, Daggett! No, it's named after the friggin', I think the lieutenant governor of California at that time, some guy named John Daggett. You know, that's what they used to do, name these towns after these dignitaries. Oh, look at that. Here's some houses in Daggett. If you lived here in Daggett, you'd be home now. Oh, that one's for sale. Wow. Some of these are actually very cute. I wouldn't mind living right across from the railroad. I mean, yeah, sure, it's kind of noisy, but I don't know. It's also kind of a soothing sound. You know, I like the sound of trains. Well, maybe not trains that close. I mean, you can see the railroad track is right on the other side of the road. Oh, look. Cemetery. Let's go check out the cemetery. Love an old pioneer cemetery, especially one that's on a dirt road. Wow, look at this. And you can see right behind it, that's I-40. I told you, I-40 is super close. How about that? The Daggett Pioneer Cemetery, right at the side of Interstate 40. Far out, man. Boy, I just love exploring these weird little towns. I don't know about you, but it's like one of the most fun things there is to do out here. Okay, this looks to be your average wind-blown, sun-baked, lonely desert cemetery. Some of these graves are so old, there's not even a name on them. Just an old, rugged wooden cross and a pile of rocks, which I guess is better than just being eaten by vultures and coyotes. Look, here's an old one. Benny Botten died in 1888, age 5 years, 5 months. Oh my God, that was the sad reality of living in these old mining towns. I mean, 1888, that would have been pretty much right when Daggett was booming, you know, so poor little Benny Botten's dad probably worked up in the borax mine. His mom spent all day hand washing clothes and grinding cornmeal, and it was just a miserable existence. And then your kids died when they were 5 years old on top of it all. And then look at this one over here. Wow. Matthew Phillips, native of St. Ives, England. Looks like he died in 1906. Wow, can you imagine coming from misty, temperate England, ending up in this blasting, blistering desert? And well, it says he was 50 years old when he died, which I guess isn't that young. I mean, it seems young to me now, but well, in those days, I guess he was considered to have lived a long life. But I bet when he left England, his mom was real sorry to see him go, because she had a feeling he'd probably end up in one of these lonely desert cemeteries. Okay, well, golly, I could wander around this lonely old pioneer cemetery all day, but it would be kind of depressing for this video. Besides, there's a bunch more interesting stuff I want to see in Daggett. Believe it or not, we didn't drive through the whole town. There's a whole other side, I think on the other side of the tracks, and there's supposed to be a really cool old stone hotel that I want to check out. Okay, let's head back into town. Oh, looks like another train is coming through, so I'm probably gonna get stuck waiting at the railroad tracks, but that's okay. It'll just give me more time to appreciate my surroundings here in Daggett. Now, you might be wondering, well, gee, Wonderhussy, if Daggett was a boom town back in the 1890s with all them saloons and hotels and a Chinese restaurant, What happened? Oh man, I feel like I'm racing the train. But I know it's very foolish to try and race a train because there's only ever one winner in that race. And newsflash, it ain't the Toyota 4Runner. No, I'm just gonna stop right here and wait for this entire train to go past. Oh wow, look, these are tankers. Probably full of oil or something. They pumped oil out somewhere in the desert. Now they're bringing it to the greedy people in Los Angeles. Just kidding, what do I know? Anyway, like I was saying, you're probably wondering, well, what happened to Daggett? What caused it to dry up and become a semi-ghost town? Well, apparently the borax deposit up in the mountains, I guess, I don't know if it actually dried up, but a better borax deposit was found up in Death Valley at the Lila C mine, which is interesting because it ties into a video I made a couple months ago with my friend Larry, where we hiked to an old ghost town called Colemanite that he called the Valley that time forgot. Well, it was right by the Lila C mine. And it had its own railroad out there, so they didn't need anything to do with Daggett anymore. It was all about Lila C, and you know how those mining towns where people would just move to the next town where the next mining strike was, and well, only a few people stayed here. And I bet those people probably said to themselves, Daggett! Okay, now we can get over to the, I guess that'd be the north side of town, and see what mysterious wonders North Daggett holds. Okay, I feel like that stone hotel is right down here somewhere. I'm not sure. Man, look at this. This does look like it's a pretty hard scrub little town. I would guess that because it's a suburb of Barstow. It's like the people who can't really afford to live in Barstow come out here. I mean, and that's saying something. Like, if you can't afford to live in LA, you move to Hesperia. If you can't afford to live in Hesperia, you move to Apple Valley. If you can't afford to live in Apple Valley, you move to Barstow. If you can't afford to move to Barstow, oh look, that's it. The Stone Hotel. Anyway, you know what I mean. I guess property just gets cheaper the farther east you go, until eventually you get to Las Vegas and then it gets expensive again. God only knows why. Okay, there's no like historical plaques or anything telling you anything about these buildings, but again, on Google Maps, this thing was called the Stone Hotel, so I'm gonna guess it was an old hotel. Oh look, and there's a little covered wagon with a number 1 on it. I guess there's some kind of walking tour you can do here where you get a pamphlet or something and it tells you what all these buildings were. I wonder where you get that. Oh look, and then here's number 2. This is one of those classic old Wild West town buildings with a false front. You know, like in Deadwood or whatever, they would build the front of the building, make it look like it was a big, fancy, imposing 2-story building. And then you go around the side and, well, it's really just 1 story. Classic boomtown hucksterism. And then look, off the back was an even smaller little, maybe that was like the living quarters where the guy who ran the shop lived, and then this was some kind of store or saloon. This could have been a saloon, and oh, maybe they had working girls in the back. Actually, I don't know that there were any brothels here. I'm just assuming there were, because I think there was brothels in pretty much every boomtown, but it certainly didn't say anything about that on Google Maps. Boy, look at that. The Desert Market. That place looks like it has a little bit of everything. It says checks cashed, ATM, EBT accepted, liquor, beer, ice. It's a one-stop shop. You go in there, you cash your check, you get your EBT card, you buy some beer, you buy some liquor, you buy some ice. What more do you need? Wow, look at this. It says it was the Daggett Garage. The Daggett Garage began life in the 1880s at the borax town of Marion, located on the northeast shore of Calico Dry Lake, as a locomotive repair roundhouse. Okay, I'm not going to read the whole thing. You can pause the video and read it all if you want, but basically this was an old locomotive repair roundhouse. Then they used, this guy Seymour Alf, who was the blacksmith, used a 20-mule team to move the building to the Waterloo Mill. I think the Waterloo Mill was at Calico Ghost Town. Anyway, whatever, he used a 20-mule team to move a building. That's wow. Those mules, they were tough. I mean, if you've ever been to Death Valley and seen, they have, if you go to the Gosh, I can't remember what it is. There's a borax mill site there, and they have the wagons on display, and they're friggin' massive. Anyway, it says the building was moved here to its current location in 1912, and then it became an auto repair shop on the National Old Trails Highway until World War II, when it became a mess hall for the U.S. Army troops guarding the local railroad bridges. How about that? This building has seen some action. It went from being a locomotive repair house to a mess hall for the military, auto repair shop. Well, it says after World War II, the Fouts brothers bought the building in 1946, and they operated a garage and machine shop until the mid-1980s. Wow, it says now it's owned and operated by the Golden Mining and Trucking Company. Oh yeah, how cool. Look how the back is. You can see where it said, Hello Bill Garage. Wow, look at these houses. This is what your life could be like if you lived in Daggett. Let's go across the street. I mean, there's some pretty funky yard art in front of this house. Whoever lives there has got to be pretty cool. I mean, look at this thing in the front. How about that? Man, we need something like that at our Death Valley compound. I got to start making more time to do arts and crafts like that. Okay, well, I feel like that is pretty much all there is to Daggett. I mean, there's like a couple little side streets, but it's just people, you know, living their lives. And I sort of feel exploitative when I go driving around these neighborhoods. You know, like a lot of people call it ruin porn. Like, I guess it's just a human thing to like to look at people who are living in rougher circumstances than you are, because it makes you feel better about your own circumstances. But I don't know, it's kind of distasteful to me. I actually have a lot of respect for anybody who's hanging on here in Daggett, keeping this town alive. I mean, it's kind of like where I moved out in Death Valley. The town where I live has been barely hanging on by its toenails for decades, and it's only thanks to people like me who are foolhardy enough to move out there that it stays alive. Golly, it's a shame these trains don't stop here anymore, because there's plenty of train traffic. All right, well, I'm gonna get back in the car. I'll drive around a little bit more. I didn't go down that way. I'll give Daggett one more chance. See, this time it doesn't matter if the train's coming, because I'm just paralleling the railroad tracks. I'm gonna go straight and see what's in West Daggett. Well, there's like kids playing on the porch. I think looks like there's still families here. There's a community center, and you know, you're not that far from Barstow, which has all the services you would need. I'll bet you anything, property is super affordable out here, and this really probably isn't a bad place to live. I don't know, maybe not. Wow. Gosh, now I'm curious. I want to look up property values out here. I want to go look up that house that was for sale and see how much they're asking for it. Holy cannoli. Oh, look, here's some newer houses up here. How about that? These look pretty tidy. Oh, it's like an apartment complex, but it's like a manufactured home apartment complex. Wow. Oh, now I've seen everything. Okay, well, I'm going to turn around because this road just turned to dirt and it just kind of peters out. It's not a very big town, but I don't know. It's got kind of a cool, funky... It's got a funkiness to it. In fact, they filmed scenes from the Grapes of Wrath, you know, the 1940s Grapes of Wrath movie. Part of that was filmed out here. And frankly, I'm really not surprised, because, gosh, this does look like a pretty hard scrabble dust bowl type town. Although back in the 40s when they made that movie, I guess Daggett was probably in a little better shape. Okay, look, I'm not trying to be exploitative, but in the interest of being thorough, this is like the only other street in town. I thought I might as well drive down this too, just in case there's something super interesting, which kind of this whole town is super interesting. Oh, wow, look, this must be the school. See that? They even have their own school. They got a playground. Well, you know, I bet it's not a bad place to be a kid. Well, I guess it's not a school, it's just a community park. Yeah, even better. There's a park and no school. It's a great place to be a kid. Remember how when you were a kid you hated to go to school? Wow, well, all joking aside though, if you were a kid here, there's plenty of desert to run around in, you know. I don't know. I think it would be all right. Okay, well, we've come full circle now back to the desert market, so guess I'm just gonna roll on out of town. Hopefully you enjoyed this tour of Daggett, and gosh, I would say come out here and support the local economy, but the only business I saw was that liquor store, or that market. So, hey, if you need to buy ice and you're anywhere near Barstow, come buy it here.